So for anyone who may not be aware of what it is you do, do you want to kind of explain this travel tribe?
Yeah, definitely. So I am the creator and founder of Nomadness Travel Tribe and Audacity Fest, which is our biggest kind of break off event that we do. And essentially, we started off as the catalyst of the Black travel movement as it's known in the United States. And so I started 11 years ago with 100 people. We now have a community of over 24,000, primarily travelers of color from around the world. So I personally am the leader along with my team. I'm having a little bit
Are
of
you back?
connecting to you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you fine. It did cut out just a second ago. So can you take me back to the beginning? Like when you did set this up, like I think you said over 10 years ago, what made you kind of want to create this real community of, some brown travelers?
Well, I'm a 3-time expat. So I've lived in Paris, I've lived in Chiang Mai, Thailand, and I've lived in Niigata, Japan. And so being a 3-time expat, I rode and I was like, I need to see where my people are.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, it was really about creating a centralized space in which we could all come together and be able to share resources, because I'm not following the path of anybody in my family.
Mm-hmm.
I am absolutely the outlier, and so for that, I needed a people that I could relate to on different levels. This is that were needed because I was figuring this whole backpacking solo travel as a woman thing out by myself in the beginning. And so for me, it was more so about creating community, bringing folks together from all around the world, but folks that had the same type of like lifestyle and, like-mindedness and travel stylistic, but also that look like me, because we travel a little bit different from everybody else. We do the same things, but our experience is very much different from a lot of our counterparts that are plastered all over, travel marketing for different boards of tourism and, branding. And so our story was not being showcased to mass media. And so for me, I wanted to get the community together, because I knew that once we got the community together, then we could start to really own our own narrative in regards to the stories and showing people that we're out there as well. So yeah, it was the answer to my own call and not knowing that I was answering the call to so many others all around the world. So it kind of was just I say all the time, Nomadness it turned me into an accidental entrepreneur. Like I didn't know that this was what was going to happen on the other side of this. I didn't go into it knowing I was going to be creating a business. I knew I wanted to bring people together. That's about as far as it went when I first started with those 100 people 9 years ago. So it's been amazing and humbling to see where it's grown to at this point.
At what point, do you remember the specific moment, you created this because it was something that you felt was missing from your own experiences, and you had 100 people at first, but at what point did you think, okay?
There's so many moments. I think that it's never just one moment. I feel like we've had a couple of moments over time. No Madness meetup, the tribe was only 3 weeks old, and Sasha and like have something that we walk away with at the end of it. And I think I may even have, I got the first one. This is like the old school first ever Nomadness membership card. And then there's like different tiers of membership cards. We have the black card, the red card. We even have a gold card that we haven't come out with yet. But yeah, like there's so many iterations of things that you could do, right, with a community. And so for me, I think that first meetup 3 weeks in, we didn't know each other. They didn't know me. I didn't know the majority of these people. I was used to being a solo backpacker. And we had over 40 people show up to the first Nomadness at Real Down to Mars, as I still got that membership card. Girl, we've done so many iterations of this card. We got a new card that we give to people. So this is the black card. This is the old school red card. Y'all haven't even seen the gold card yet. I'm trying to see if I have the new white card. I have these things like stashed everywhere. But it was really about seeing those first 40 people come together and literally just observing it. Like, I didn't really have a plan for what the meetup was going to be. It was really about seeing the vibe and seeing these people and kind of how they interacted with one another. That was going to set the stage for everything that came after. Then 3 months later, we end up in Panama, and Bocas del Toro, Panama, on our first ever nomadness trip. I had no idea that I was going to end up curating travel. Like, I was like, I usually do this by myself. What the hell am I doing here with like 18 people, you know? So there was a lot of saying yes to the needs and the wants of the community that kind of popped up, and a lot of it popped up unexpectedly. There was a lot of navigating that space that showed me that this was something way bigger than myself. I knew it was bigger than me from the beginning, but something that really had legs, you know. And then that first trip in Bocas del Toro, 6 months later, that story ended up in the pages of Ebony magazine, by Tamika Anderson, who was on that trip. And it's just like, what the hell's happening here? Like, what's going on, really? And that's when I realized that we were a movement. And there's words that I don't take lightly that I think some people kind of throw around, right? And one of those is movement for me. I feel like you have to be anointed as a movement. You don't just come out the gate talking about we're a movement. Somebody that is a part of that community needs to say that, I feel, before you do, as leadership, because that's really where the validity of the statement comes from. That's just my personal take on it. You have to put in some work. You have to show up for leader, you know? And all of those things lead to you being able to substantiate yourself as a movement. So I would say within the first 6 months, the community had anointed us as a movement, and that's when I started to really see things kind of take off, and I knew that there was something special going on.
Like, kind of leading on from what you said, I think particular words are really like important, you know, like the word, like obviously community, and I think you use the word tribe quite a lot. Why? Yes, and says, here we go. Agree, tribes over followers. Why have you chosen to use that word, you know, tribe?
So shouts out to Amber Adams. Before I started Nomadness Travel Tribe, I was brainstorming it out, right? And Amber and I had just went to go get coffee at a place, unfortunately, that's not there anymore. We were at Argo Tea by Union Square, 11th Street and University Ave in New York City. And we sat down to talk. You know, that point in time, like, this platform called Ning was kind of showcasing communities that you could, like, you know, create and then have people buy into. I didn't know what I wanted, and I realized that, like, you know, I heard this quote once and have kind of taken it on. If the internet was a geographical location, like, Facebook is the capital. And so there's so many people that are on Facebook, and that's where, you know, I'm the same age as Mark. I remember when you had to get into Facebook with a school ID. You couldn't even get in with a regular email. Like, we were a part of, like, the beginnings of Facebook and the iteration, and then people went into, like, MySpace, and then they kind of came back, and then everybody was on Facebook. They opened up the algorithm. So it's like, I've seen all phases of this. Like, I've been on Facebook since its inception. And so I knew that so much of my community was already housed on there, from people that I had worked in television and video production with, because my background is actually in TV, all the way to my, you know, college network, you know, like the people I went to school with, because all of us kind of got onto Facebook in its origination. And so the connection was there. And so I ended up linking up with Amber Adams, and I'm like brainstorming this whole thing and trying to figure out where to house it. And she was just like, you know, have you ever read the book Tribes by Seth Godin? And I was like, no. I think at that time I hadn't even heard of Seth Godin. And this particular cafe that we were at is literally 2 blocks away from my favorite bookstore, my favorite Barnes & Noble in New York City. And so she was like, you need to get this book Tribes, because you're the exact type of person that he's talking about. So I was like, all right, cool. So after our conversation, I went straight to Barnes & Noble, got the book Tribes. It is in my bookshelf today in my living room. And I read the book over and over again because it's very, if you know anything about Seth Godin's books, they're usually pretty short, but they pack a great punch. Like, he gets to the point and he's amazing at what he does in the marketing space. And so I just read it and was like, oh my gosh, like, this is me. This is what I'm trying to connect. I've always been a community connector. I was throwing house parties when I was 15 years old, reading, like literally reading the room, reading communities of people, and creating a space at my house that brought like the hood, like Poughkeepsie City School District into my house. How they found out about it to this day, I still don't know. And then also my like affluent jock school, you know, that I just made it into because we moved, you know, to high school, like all together, right? And so I was like the only one who would see these two like converge together.
Mm.
And honestly, creating house parties, marketing and promoting it with flyers, looking at the attrition rate of how many flyers I hand out versus how many people show up. I've literally been a low-key entrepreneur, community organizer, and event organizer and planner since I was 15. Like, literally since I was 15. And so all those things in retrospect you can look at. And so I just soaked into tribes, and I say it's like my Bible. So when I was coming up with the name, Nomadness was like already kind of there, but when it came to the community I wanted, I knew it was going to be wrapped around travel, and the tribe just kind of like was my nod to Seth Godin, like, yo, you wrote this, and it literally like it hit to the core of who I am as a being, and thank you, you know, and the idea a Black traveler is like really why I was like, yo, this is the move. Like, this is super dope. All kind of
Honestly, I think I really want to go and get that book now. I think I'm going to go on Amazon.
It's so good.
And go and order it, because I just think there's so much that you've taken away from that has really, I guess, shaped how, you know, how you've created and curated this you know, tribe. I wanted to ask, like, if someone wanted, you know, to create, I think what I've kind of taken away from this is you've kind of you're naturally that person who creates a tribe, I think. If someone was like, I really want to, you know, be able to do what you're doing, what kind of advice should we give them?
Right. There's a number of things. And it's interesting that you bring it up too, because right now, literally, I'm creating an ebook that's actually going to be going into my course on how to curate community. But the ebook that I'm dropping is actually going to be about curating community during COVID. It's going to be very time specific to what we're going through right now, because I think people are understanding. I think people are seeing the difference right now between people who have a community and people who have followers. That's one of the first things. COVID has really pulled the screen up on who's really about it and who has shown up and put the time and diligence into like curating an actual community versus people who are just like, it's numbers, the numbers look great, but there's nothing really behind it, right? And so what I would say is also definitely start with like your identification, right? Who are your demographics? Who are you actually trying to talk to? And I think people make a big mistake early on of trying to be like, oh, it's for everybody. No, it's not for everybody. No. You're not for everybody. I'm not for everybody. Like, you know what I'm saying? So it's so true. And you're not supposed to be, that's the point, right? Yeah. So understanding who your target audience is, your demographic, not running away from the word niche, and understanding that niche doesn't have to be centralized, and people that are coming into a specific space. You also have to understand that you are in the business of people if you are taking this on, right? I tell people all the time, it looks like I'm in the business of travel. That's what it looks like. I am actually in the business of people. And travel just happens to be the path that leads us together and the web that weaves. That's the road that we're on. But I am actually in the business of people. So if you want to get into community curation, you have got to understand that you are in the business of people, which means you are also in the business of dealing with people's shit. So it's like, you've got to be okay understanding that you're going to need to show up at times. I say all the time, I show up when it's pretty and when it's shitty. That's the type of leader I am. So identifying where your community is, and I would start where they are, and then if you want to, try to bring them to where you want them to be. Too many times we're trying to grab people, especially now with the limited attention span of everybody. We're trying to grab people and come here, come here, come here. How about you take a moment, acknowledge where they are, right? And maybe set up shop where they are. And that's how you build the trust and the camaraderie behind your leadership. And then you can kind of guide them to the different avenues that you want, whether that's in-person trips and curating event experiences like what I've done, whether it's to a merchandise or product site that you're building out now or have had and want to get off the ground. Start where they are and show them the respect of showing up where they are first, and then bring them, once you've established that, to where you want them to be. The other thing is you need to identify what type of leader you are. Because if you're going to step into this, leadership ain't for everybody. That's the other thing. And then once you figure out that you've made the decision to become a leader and you want people to follow your messaging, your community, whatever it is that you're developing, you need to understand what type of leader you are. Are you a leader that likes to be the face of your brand? Are you a leader that likes to play the background? And this is the thing. There's no wrong answer. There's no wrong answer. You just need to understand going into it that this is how you as a leader are going to maneuver. And if you are the type of leader who doesn't want to be the face of your brand and wants to kind of play the background, you need to figure out who is going to play the front ground. Yeah. Because when shit goes down, they're going to need somebody trustworthy for them to be able to reach out to. They're going to need it. And so you've got to figure out what type of leader you are. So, I mean, without going deep into it, the main things I would say would really be about identifying your niche, identifying your demographic, going where they are and building and setting up shop where they are and then bringing them to you. But also in that process, and probably before that process, you need to figure out and have a real honest discourse with yourself to figure out what type of leader you are and what type of leader you want to be. Because whatever that positionality is, that's it. You got to lock into it and then go. And if you need, especially in the beginning, if you realize you want to play the background, figure out what your team is going to look like. You know, who can play the front ground and be that face. That would be like the first steps that I would tell somebody from scratch.
I need to, literally, I feel like I need to go and rewatch all of this after, because there was so much, like, real great gems of like information there. Obviously, you kind of touched on it a minute ago, but we are like obviously in this pandemic. COVID-19 is taken over across the world. And one thing I've noticed about you is already that your entrepreneurial spirit's really come out. You know, you've even just said that, you know, you're going to be releasing an ebook kind of about this time, and like building communities and stuff as well. So how have you been like bringing ideas together during this time?
Honestly, we ask our community. Really interesting to me, particularly that's my area of expertise, right? That's where I live. So what I have found, something that bothered me in the beginning of this whole COVID situation, and I understand that everybody's just trying to figure it out, so it's not judgment, but it was bothersome to me because I feel like there was a level of reading the room that didn't happen, and maybe even a level of empathy that didn't happen in that moment, right? I was surprised how every company, I mean, it seemed like every website you had ever signed up for in your life, right, was sending you emails like, this is what we're doing to combat COVID, and it's just like, yo, like, I was like, I got like 100 emails in the course of a week, and I'm like, have y'all even like taken a breath yet to know what you're doing? Like, you don't even know what this is yet. But what I saw was like, there were different, particularly like there's travel brands too that I saw where it was just like, okay, we're going to come out with like web series influencer and all this other stuff. And I remember looking at my email like, what? Like, wow. What do you mean? First off, nobody's going anywhere, right? Yeah. And second of all, the idea of doing a mastermind group right now at the height of COVID about being a travel influencer, like that entire concept may be eradicated on the other end of this, right? Like that's not what this is. And I just felt like there were so many emails that I saw go out from respective companies or groups or communities or whatever that were so tone deaf to what was actually going on here. And so the first email that went out after COVID started from Nomadness was us asking how we could serve our community. It wasn't us telling you what we were going to do, because frankly, we didn't know what the hell we were going to do. Like, we're figuring it out, you know, and there's honesty in that. There's a humility in that. And so for me, the first email that we sent out was really like, okay, look, we know that this is completely unprecedented. Nobody's doing this. Like, people are losing people. I mean, literally, you know, there's all these things that are going on. How do you best want us to show up for you? We know that we are a community first, right? So what does that look like for you right now? And we sent them a super quick 5-question survey. And one of the 5, like the first question was, what do we ask them? What type of content are you most interested in seeing right now? And it was like business opportunities, travel content, COVID information, community connectedness, or levity. Talk to me about anything else except for COVID. And when we got at like the first 500 surveys back, literally travel content was the last thing that they wanted to talk about. They didn't want to talk about this shit.
Yeah.
But it's not. When you think about it, it's like, it makes perfect sense. Nobody can go anywhere right now. They're canceling trips. We don't know what's going to happen. It made perfect sense if you actually room. These are people you're dealing with. So we really curated all of our content around what they responded to us. So what did we do? Within a week or so, we started our quarantine content conversations, right? And the way that we had the tribe tie-in is we made sure being poached from nomadness. People, anything you need on earth, you can find and source from that are in nomadness on going on with COVID. We had conversations with vendors that we've used in South Africa, Cartagena, and you know, entrepreneurs that are in nomadness. Deirdre, who runs Wandersay Houston hostel. Like, we were having conversations, and it was always tribe, because we were pulling our people from nomadness, right? But what made it so dope was that we had broadened the actual conversation to cover the gamut of what real life actually looks like. Let's not act like, let's not be in denial. And paint this rose-colored picture. Let's be real about it. Let's be positive about what the future looks like, but let's not act like this is something that it isn't. And so for us, that was a beautiful transition and very fast for us to do the quarantine content and to showcase our members just how dynamic they are as people, to give them the platform to do that on our channels. Even with our festival, Audacity Fest, we were treading towards over 1,000 people at our festival in the weekend of August 20th to the 23rd in New York. New York is an epicenter of what's happening right now with COVID, right? And we can't have all these people, because I will not be the Black woman that gave 1,000 Black people COVID. I will not. Yeah. and so we, again, and now on Saturday, hosting the first Audacity Digi, and we're turning this into a digital experience. And it's everything with, you know, vendors that we have with the digital expo, a main stage, we have amazing panelists, and it's energy. We're still going to have our flair, we're still going to have our music, we're still going to have our vibe. And so literally now, when people go to audacityfest.com, they can get tickets for Audacity Digi, and now Audacity Digi is going to be a part of our ecosystem. It's not going to be a one-off. It's not going to be the replacement of the physical festival while we have to postpone it. It's actually going to be something now that we do every couple months to keep the conversation going and to keep the community engaged and to keep the vibe of what makes Audacity Fest so dope alive. And so that's really what it is. But we answered the call of our people. And to answer your question, frankly, we asked them, because we don't have all the answers and we're not scared to say that. We asked them.
I think that's honestly the best way. People is actually listening to the communities and responding to what they actually want, rather than doing what you think they want, because more time it's probably wrong. And like,
right,
as well, not reading the room, which that really rung true to me actually when you said that. I know exactly what you described is how I opened up my own emails at the beginning of this time. I was like, It's no understanding what's going on here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Before we kind of wrap it up a bit, if anyone has any questions, feel free to pop them in the comments or the question mark box. I wanted to ask you, what would be like the one message you'd like to leave everybody who's been inspired by your journey and just inspired by everything that you're doing?
I mean, it depends on what route they're trying to go, right? I'm a firm believer in just start. I don't subscribe too much to the idea of perfection. I just, because I think that that's when analysis paralysis sets in. That's when people start thinking too much and they don't do shit, you know? And that's really where the guts are. The guts is in the doing. And so for me, it's not getting caught up in the thought process and mulling it over and it needs to look like this. How about you just start and you figure it out along the way? And that's been kind of like the road that I've taken for an extended amount of time, and just how I approach life, but also what I've done with nomadness, you know, because your idea of perfection too is it's always going to change. You know, my idea of perfect 8 years ago when I started nomadness looks a lot different from right now. And so it's not a destination. It's an evolution and it's a journey, right? And allow it to be that, but allow it. I can be very resolute, my personality and my decisions, which is a great thing to have when decisions need to be made, but it can also hinder you when it actually requires, the moment requires a step back, a listen to everybody. Like one of the things that I do with my team is if I ask a question, I give my opinion last in our meetings. I don't lead with my opinion because you don't know, there's just a psychology to it. And some people may not even be conscious of it. If the boss in the room gives the point of view, it's like everybody starts shaping their opinions around what that looks like. And I don't like that. I don't like that. I don't want yes people around me all the time. That's how shit goes crazy. So I keep my opinions last. And I let my team kind of think about it, because by the time it comes back to me, I may have changed my decision just listening to everybody else, you know? And so I think understanding that it's bigger than you, if you're really about to go into this community aspect, it's also not about you. So you have to check your ego. You're going to have to stand up. You're going to have to be an advocate for yourself and for your community and your team in many ways. But at the same time, you know, it's bigger than you. It's always bigger than you. And I understand that, and have a fond respect for the art of listening and making informed decisions after the listening happens. So just start, but don't get bogged down on all of the minute details, because I feel like, you know, when you're self-sabotaging, because we all do it, you know, like you kind of know when it's just like, yeah, I'm getting hung up on this small ass detail because I'm really not trying to just like move forward with the bigger project. You got to get out of that and just, you know, go do it scared. Just do it scared and figure it out.
I think that's so, honestly, figuring it out sort of as you're going along, because you can spend years trying to perfect and plan whatever. You're amazing. And it could be the idea what you believe is going to make you like blow. But if you spend all that time really, you know, focusing on the nitty gritty, it will never.
And life changes too fast. Just being in like a technological environment, it's too fast. If you're spending all of these years pushing it out, it's just like, by the time it comes out, you have to ask yourself, like, is it still going to be in touch with what is actually relevant in that moment? You know, a lot of things move fast. And I'm not saying that due diligence doesn't need to be had, but I think we know the difference internally between like due diligence and patience versus like, you know, and haphazardly just sending something out versus knowing that like we're self-sabotaging and like it does not take this long. If we're making it take this long, it does not actually take this long to get this done.
Trust me, I know all about that. This question says, how do you gauge authenticity in a potential brand partner?
So this is the thing. I do it kind of the same way I build my team, actually. I'm a little bit weary of, it's rare that you'll see me be like, hey, we're hiring for whatever for nomadness, because I'm weary of people who kind of like turn into what you need them to be. And it's not really them, or it's not really where their heart is, and they lose interest and things of that nature. So I hire a lot in-house from nomadness, and it's an observation. You know, it's really an observation. And I realize in being asked that question that I use the same tactic for our partners. We look at brands that are already walking the walk and talking the talk. So I'll take Audacity Fest, for instance. People were always asking us, okay, like the first one was in Oakland. Oakland's super dope, but San Francisco's right there. Why did you choose Oakland?
Yeah.
Last year, it was in Memphis. They're like, Memphis? Why the hell did you go to Memphis? And there's a number of criteria, right? One, we poll the tribe because, again, I listen to my community.
Yeah.
And as long as the city ended up in one of the top 3, we knew that they would travel there. They would buy tickets there because there was some interest. We're also open to putting places that may not be on the map. This is something Nomadness has done since day one. We have been going to South Africa, to Johannesburg for trips since 2014, when nobody was messing with Johannesburg, South Africa. You hear me? Nobody. Okay. Now everybody and their mom is in South Africa. Multiple trips. Afropunk's there. It's just like, what, you know, Durban had Essence Festival, you know, there. It's just like, it's crazy, but we're known for kind of sneaking in and going into these places and kind of poking around and tinkering and seeing like, yo, what's dope here? Bring our community there that we use, trying to support small Black-owned businesses in these areas, and then bringing it back to the community. And then the community is the amplifier. And it's crazy. Like some of the vendors that everybody uses in Johannesburg, like shouts out to Curiosity Africa, Becky Dubé, and that whole crew, Tsepo and all of them, and Robin that worked there. Like we were there when literally like the neighborhood of Maboneng was nothing. Like it was just starting. And we were staying there doing Nomadness trips. And now everybody's there and everybody knows like Becky's like winning awards in Africa and in like Forbes, like, you know, 30 under 30 Africa. You know what I'm saying? So it's been amazing to see everybody's growth through time and us to have even those international interpersonal relationships. And so I think that that's really the ethos with how we kind of go about it and go about our process.
Honestly, I want to go and visit South Africa now, and I wish that
it's so good. It's like my favorite
of traveling. Okay, I wanted to ask this question as well. Any tips on how to keep an online event engaging? Your next event sounds really exciting.
Online again, yeah, I'm super excited about Audacity Fest. You guys, the tickets are only $20. So if you want, go to audacityfest.com. And I love it because we are also showcasing every Audacity Digi that we do. We're doing a $5 donation add-on for 3 small businesses that are being impacted by everything that's going on with COVID. And at the end of the event, we're sending them all that donation money. And so Curiosity Africa, like I said, their hotel hostel hybrid, amazing boutique hotel in South Africa. Them and their tours are obviously being hit by COVID. So there's donations for Curiosity Africa, Experience Real Cartagena, run by Alex Rocha, who is like tribe famous. This man, because of Nomadness, he started a tour company in Cartagena, and literally everybody books him. Like Kendrick Lamar booked him for his tours when he came down. He shows you the Black, like African diasporic version of Cartagena, which is absolutely amazing. And then we have B-Girl World, who's run by Disha Dyer, one of our members who actually was the social secretary for President Barack Obama. She has a nonprofit based out of Philadelphia called B-Girl World, where she actually sends women, young girls, teenagers from Philly out, and they travel around the world, but they also are exposed to the world through global education with speakers and different curriculum that she brings to them. So those are the 3 add-ons to the tickets that you can do, and you can pick one, you can pick none. But we have, I mean, some of the top names in Black and Brown travel internationally, including some of y'all from the UK. So like our content creator panel has Clay from Win Collective, Jabril, Clay, literally I got the three dopest content creators I know in travel on one panel, and I cannot wait. Like we got Clay from the Win Collective, Jabril Agoro from Passport Heavy, who's another video amazing and has actually been working with me on some of my projects. We have Lola, National Geographic, like award-winning, who's based out of Ashley from Hey Ashley. Renee, who's all about sustainability. I was doing her speaker orientation yesterday, and I was like, listen, your sustainability is like the bomb, and everybody's going to be like into that now. I saw the comment from Raj Demo, stop saying Black and Brown. Actually, I very consciously say Black and brown, because our community represents multiple shades. It's not just Black travelers that are a part of Nomadness. So if you actually look at our demographic, it's said consciously, and I stand by it 100%. And with that said, just the lineup that we have is amazing, and we're recognizing that there's 3 different tracks that have kind of developed through our panels, right? One track is creative for the content creators. We got workshops that we're doing from Branding 101, creating a deck that will get the attention of different. And we also have a community track, which is like my favorite. We have from Black Girls Travel to Danny Mitchell, myself, and Zat Javier from Black Voyageurs in France. So it's like literally we are bringing like our Western European connect and our African American connect of this whole like Black travel movement together for Audacity Fest. And so I think for us, to answer the person's question, it is a connectivity, right? It's about keeping the conversation going. I think our agility and being a small team and running the community the way that we do is amazing. And do things like bring the core, kind of already started getting people in the groove of, okay, let's see what other content they come out with. I think waiting a second, taking a beat, and finding a portal, an actual platform that we could house the festival on was very important to me, because this is the thing. I'm about functionality, but I'm about aesthetics. Like, people know when they walk into Audacity Fest, there is a vibe that hits you at the door. Everybody says, they're like, yo, this is like the Black Travel Family Reunion. Glow from Glow Graphics has like gone on the record saying, she's like, yo, I feel like of all the travel events that I have to speak at during the year, that Audacity Fest is like the soul food for all of us of color in this travel movement. And it's like, we are bringing that vibe and that experience online. And like I said, we're going to keep doing it until we can all safely gather back together again. So I think having that consistent build up, giving people taste tests of what the bigger mission and event is that you're leading up to is a really good way to do it. And we ended up doing it through our quarantine content. And like I said before, showcasing our Nomadness members and all of their expertise and kind of broadening the conversation past just the literal travel conversation, because we are human and there's a lot of human things that are going on in our lives right now.
Oh, I need to go. I need to get myself a ticket and come to the virtual festival. I really liked as well what you said about it being having to find the right platform to house it on, because I think that's super important as well, because you know people are going to be sitting there and they want it to be good.
Yeah.
Audacity Fest to the UK. Well, it's virtual.
It's
now,
funny. So. Let me tell y'all, you're expensive. That's the first thing I'm going to say. That conversion rate is not in my favor, boo. It's not in my favor. However, the intention is definitely to bring Audacity Fest International. It absolutely is. I will say that our first iteration that we were brainstorming, and we don't know when this is going to happen, so wait for this. Our first iteration that we were brainstorming was to actually do Audacity Fest in South Africa, just because of the depths of the connections that we have there. But I think like I ended up going to WTM, for those of you who don't know it, World Travel Market. It's like one of the world's biggest travel expos, and it's done in London every year. And during the gap in person, not just socially, in person with a number of like the influencers, the people who are really pushing the envelope in the UK, right? And so for me, it's definitely about the finances and the budget. It's about the relationships that we have on ground. But I'll be honest with you, we have some tight-knit people who would really push it in the UK. And so the UK is not off the table. Like I said, y'all conversion rate is crazy for the Americans. It's crazy, but it's not off the table. It's not off the table.
Amazing. Evita, thank you so much. Last question. Obviously you've been to loads of different places.
Okay. Can you repeat the question?
What would be the one place you'd like to go and visit that you've not been to?
Ooh, I was supposed to be in Egypt in April. I was supposed to be in Africa almost all of April between Egypt and Morocco. And both are two places I have not been to that have also been high on my list. I have a fascination with world wonders. And so for me, Egypt and seeing the pyramids and the Sphinx and being able to actually go, Egypt has been one of my number one dream trips for a long time. And I've been to my number two for the longest. It was like Egypt was number one, India was number two, and like Santorini, Greece was number three. I've been to 2 and 3, and I go to India almost every year. So I go to India and South Africa the most. But Egypt is still very much calling me. And as is Morocco, to be honest with you. I think whenever I do actually get to one, I am going to take that time to go to the other one as well, whether it's for the project that we were working on or to just go on my own. One of the things that COVID has allowed me to do is really sit down and assess the model that nomadness is and the things that I love about it and the things that I don't love about it and how it's run. And one of the things that I'm also now going to be embedding into our annual schedules, I'm going to be taking like a month sabbatical every year, to be able to just get back to me and to get back to, I'm still a backpacker at heart. Yeah. I really am. I'm still the chick that will I pack light. I will literally just go with a bag. I have never been opposed to like hostels. I mean, things may change now, but it's just like I've always been that chick that can just go and show up somewhere and figure it out. And I think always staying in touch with that version of myself will make me a better leader. It'll make me a better CEO. It'll also keep my creativity and my brain going with nomadness and an Audacity Fest. And also it'll, to the point of the person who asked that, it'll also give me ideas of places where we can feasibly move it. You know what I'm saying? So I think that there's so much opportunity that's out there. But for me, I'm excited just to get back on the road for myself. I'm also looking at other places to move to, because the way America handled this ain't cutting it. I already know, as a Black woman living in America, I already know what this story really looks like from the inside and what it's always looked like for us here. But I just feel like this lack of leadership, we're in an election year. And so if this dude gets elected again in November, like I'm out for real. And I'm in the space in my life where I'm thinking about having a baby and, you know, all that other stuff. Like I'm not doing it here if this is what's going on. So yeah, that's all of that stuff is like part of it. But I realized that I really want to take like a month off every year. And I think it would really rejuvenate me. It would rejuvenate everything that I'm doing here. And so, you know, I think it would be amazing. I saw a great TED Talk about sabbaticals years ago, and I was reminded of it this week. There's a company, I don't remember the name of it, but every 7 years, productivity so much and their creativity once everybody comes back, and it just allows a moment to live your life. And I think that's the thing. As an entrepreneur, sometimes we get into our own processes and we forget that like we run this. We can make it look like whatever the hell we want it to look like because it's ours. And that's one of the benefits of being an entrepreneur. And so I've had to remind myself of that. And COVID, that's one of the bright spots to COVID, is it's really had me look at and how I'm going forward.
Hotep B Star Production said, here's that 1 month sabbatical. I'm in agreement as well, because I think that's so important for, like what you said, just having that creativity, especially when you're an entrepreneur. Evita, thank you so much. I've had such a really nice afternoon speaking to you. Is there anything else you want to say before we say goodbye?
No, just anybody who's interested in following us, you can follow us on Instagram at nomadness tribe. That's our social handle across the board. We're taking our quarantine content that we were doing live on our Facebook channels, and we've been putting them out on our Instagram